Today, Alas Babylon, by Pat Frank. This is a great book. I read when I first started out my classics education about 15 years ago, and I'm so grateful. You know, I was always in such a hurry to make a lot of money that I kept putting things off, and I'd put this off for a few years, and I finally, meaning my classics education, and I finally one day said, you know what? I'm not getting any closer to this. I keep working so hard at my job, and I keep doing everything wrong there. Not everything, but most things. And so I'm not getting what I want. So I'm going to just start. Oh, I'm so grateful I did. I love to feel mentally enriched. I love that feeling. And I feel that way often because of the things I'm reading and studying, and the enriching mental stimulation. It's wonderful. And I remember when I was young, I was studying. I would study Covey, and I had his planner and set goals and prioritize them. And I remember he saying goals that you needed to set mental goals. I was like, mental goals? I'm not in school. Why would I set mental goals? Well, I now set mental goals because I understand what he's talking about. And it's so sad that I can grow up in America and we have all these incredible texts at our disposal, most of them free because they're in the public domain, and I had never read them. I read a little bit of of Little House in the Big Woods when I was a kid, a little bit. And I read Henry Huggins, which I wouldn't consider a classic. And that's the only books I remember reading when I was young until high school. And then we read Romeo and Juliet. It wasn't mentored correctly. I mean, it's like adding fuel to the fire. Holy cow! And I read some few other ones. And I remember in my senior year, I did have a good mentor, and I read Brothers of Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I'm really going on a tangent, but I had a great experience, and I had a great mentor that year. So the point is, that's just a little history of me. But this all started, well, I started this with Alas Babylon. Alas Babylon is about nuclear war. It happens here in America, we're attacked, boom, 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 boom. What's going to happen? How do people react? It's really interesting to watch the characters and what happens to these characters. Is this considered a classic? I don't know. I don't know if I would consider it a classic, but I like the discussion that can ensue from this. Great discussion. How are you going to react when there's a major emergency? Are you prepared for an emergency? How are you prepared? Are you prepared physically? Are you prepared mentally? You know, when this happened, you saw some people that were kind of not low lives, but just pleasure, goofing off, not taking the world serious. And you got some people like bankers and stuff that are very serious, that are, you know, going to work and doing what they're supposed to do, and you know, as a pillar of the community. And then when this happens, this banker commits suicide. This other guy's kind of a playboy. All of a sudden, he steps at the plate, and he becomes a leader, and they're able to take care of themselves. And a lot of them weren't prepared. A lot of people just gave up and died. Then there's all this, and then from that point, there's all these criminals coming up, and how do they handle the criminals, and how do they take, you know, and they've got to eat. How are they going to eat? And it's fascinating too. Oh, I love this part of the book. The day after the nuclear war, the nuclear bombs, and they didn't get nuked where they were at. They saw the clouds far away. They were in Florida, and I think they saw one down in Miami or wherever. But she says, I gotta get to the library. She's a librarian. And she shows up and people are waiting in the line. There's no TV. There's no computers. Not that they had any when this book was published. I think it was published in the 60s. I'll look real quick. This was published in 1959. So, but it's fascinating that people would turn to books. And what a wonderful thing books are. So this is a good book, I think, from a lot of of discussion that could happen, and it just gets you thinking, what would I do? I think maybe it is a classic because of that. What would you do in that situation? Anything could happen. You know, we've seen over the last few years a tsunami, and we've seen earthquakes in Haiti, and we've seen even here Hurricane Sandy and Hurricane Katrina. What would you do? How would you handle it? Are you prepared? Are you prepared physically? Do you have food storage? Do you have a year supply of food storage if you had to? Do you have weapons to defend yourself? Do you have weapons to hunt if you needed to hunt? Do you know how to hunt? Do you know how to fish? Do you know how to what are you going to use to trade? You have skills you could barter and trade with, because money will be, you know, depending what happened, money may be useless. How are you going to get water? How are you going to heat? How are you going to get fuel? Do you have it stored? Do you think? Are you mentally tough enough to think through things and to handle stressful situations? And if you're not, how do you develop that? And how do you build up these reserves? And etc., 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 etc. So there's just a great amount of things that you think. I think you should read it just for that alone, just to get that through you, or to experience that whole what would happen, what are things like, what's going on. Because he does a great job of showing people dying in rest homes and dying car accidents because people were, you know, wrecked when the bombs went off. They saw them and they were looking and they weren't paying attention, and then the crime that started happening and the looting, and how they had to take the law into their own hands. And how do you do that? Do you have to run your own government in your own city? Do you know the principles of government? And you know, and how do you stop someone that's trying to that shouldn't be in government, that's trying to be a tyrant? And I mean, there's just so many great things to consider, and will force you, hopefully would force you to start thinking and weighing these, and then put a plan in action to where you can start being more prepared. We're working on food storage, and I've thought for a while, I've got to get some weapons. Actually, I have one. I've got to get some more in case something were to happen. But it's just a valuable thing to think of, because you don't know what's going to happen. One valuable thing is 72-hour kits. You know, we have 72-hour kits. We need to update ours. And this is a good thing I'm blogging on this, because it's reminding me of doing that. So if something happens, you need water and stuff for 72 hours, you can go and you're going to be fine. You grab your backpack and go, and you're going to live. You're going to be fine for 72 hours. And generally, things can get a little, I mean, depending what happens, you could have stability or find some things to do to take care of yourself after that period of time. So, anyways, Alas, Babylon by Pat Frank. I think it's worth reading for sure. And I have to show you this on the back of this. That's him. If you notice, they were going to take the picture, and Pat said, just a second, and got a cigarette and said, okay, take it. That's like the real estate agents. I can say this because I'm a real estate agent. That's like them when you see their business card and they got the phone up to their head, because they're like, wait a minute, you're going to take a picture? And they hold the phone. Anyways, I think that's ridiculous. I think that's hilarious. Why do you do that? But it was a thing back then, right? Everyone smoked. Anyways, Alas, Babylon, Pat Frank. If this was helpful, or if you enjoyed it, please tell people about it. Please like us on Facebook. Email us if you have questions. We can put on Q&A Tuesday. And comment below. And thanks for watching. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.